Nigeria is West Africa's biggest producer of crude oil, with over 2 million barrels per day extracted from the Niger Delta. Before the coming of President Muhammadu Buhari, a large quantity of these crude was lost to the nefarious activities of criminal elements who indulged in stealing of crude with the support of people in position of trust. On appointment of the Chief of Defense Staff, his mission statement, as well as that of other service chiefs, was not just about the protection of our nation's territorial shelves, but also the protection of our waterways and critical national assets, especially in the oil industry. This led to changes in the security architecture in the Delta region, with the rejigging of the Joint Task Force mandated to keep the Niger Delta safe, especially its critical oil asset. In pursuit of the people-oriented change agenda of a president in the Niger Delta, and following the disbandment of the Operation Polo Shield by the Chief of Defense Staff, as a result of increased cases of oil bunkering, violence, vandalism, and loss of revenue, and the establishment of the Operation Delta Safe to curb this menace, the good people of the Niger Delta in particular and Nigerians in general became hopeful that sanity will be returned to the creeks of the Niger Delta. But it is on record that Nigeria loses over 300,000 barrels of oil per day to crude oil theft due to the illicit activities of third-party interference with pipeline infrastructure. Similarly, Nigeria is losing an estimated $5 billion annually to oil bunkering, as the oil thieves have continued to inflict inestimable damage on the Niger Delta environment. Regrettably, the good effort of the federal government and Mr. President's commitment to transform the Niger Delta and make our environment clean and our oil revenue increased is being sabotaged and frustrated by the lack of capacity and commitment by the very commander of the Operation Delta Safe, Rear Admiral Suleiman Apochi, the man saddled with the task of keeping Niger Delta safe, who, acting in total and despicable abdication of his duties and assigned functions, has now turned to a willing tool in the hands of the oil thieves with his deliberate lack of action and incompetence, thereby making the oil thieves having a field day stealing crude and destroying oil pipelines. These actions of the illicit bunkers is thereby threatening our national security, sabotaging our economy and destroying the entire Niger Delta area. Today, under the very watchful eyes of Rear Admiral Suleiman Apochi, more illegal refineries and bunkering hubs have sprung up and continue to be operated by oil criminals in Bonny, Nembe, Kula, and Bile communities in Bayelsa and Rivers State, who have continued to unleash economic sabotage and environmental problems in the Niger Delta. Owing to the ineptitude and gross incompetence of Rear Admiral Suleiman Apochi, the entire waterways in Bayelsa and Rivers State have suddenly become porous under his watch, and now provides an easy passage route for the oil thieves and illegal operations. In all instances, the Niger Delta environment has become uninhabitable, sordid, and despicable. Things have worsened in the region, and presently the Igbo-Morutu corridor on the southern Ijaw, as well as the Akassa flank of the Atlantic fringe of Brass, have continued to be a major hub of illicit operations and is now virtually taken over by oil theft criminals. The Nembe Creek Trunkline (NCTL) is a major crude oil transportation channel that conveys crude injected from OMLs 29, 18, 24, 25, 23 and 55, running from Nembe Creek through Cawthorne Channel Field on OML 18 to the Bonny Oil Terminal for export. This line was built by SPDC between 2006 and 2010, but is currently being operated by ITAL Group since 2015, when Shell completed the assignment of its interest in OML 29 and the NCTL to ITAL Eastern E&P Company Limited. Due to recurring thefts along the NCTL pipeline route, which are evidenced by significant pressure reductions on the trunk line, theft points identification, as well as illegal refineries, several joint investigative visits conducted by various regulatory bodies and the applicable host community, Nigeria has experienced loss of production and revenue that should have accrued to the country's treasury from crude sales. In December 2016 alone, about 46% of the total net crude injected into the NCTL was lost on this basis. Third-party interference with the line has oftentimes resulted in oil leaks, which ultimately culminate in shutting down the NCTL to undertake emergency repairs. This in itself has resulted to shutdown of the NCTL for about 122 days and an approximate deferment of 50.386 million barrels of crude oil for the 6 injectors into the NCTL since ITAO took over the operatorship of the trunk line. We, the members of the Coalition of Niger Delta Civil Society Activists and the Niger Delta Environmental Protection Group, jointly asked Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari and Chief of Defense Staff General Abayomi Gabriel Olonishokin to immediately investigate, redeploy, and prosecute Rear Admiral Apochi Suleiman. We equally demand for a directive to the Chief of Air Staff to conduct air flyover and air surveillance over these regions to confirm the level of theft going on in this region.
The world has to know the situation we are facing, the crisis in the Niger Delta. We have written petitions to the President. We have written petitions to the National Security Advisor. We have written petitions to the Chief of Defense Staff. We have written petitions to the Chief of Army Staff. We have written petitions to the Chief of Air Staff. We have written petitions to the Chief of Naval Staff. Because it has to do with economic sabotage as well, we have also written petitions to the EFCC. We have written petitions to the Director General of the State Security Service. So we have done these petitions complaining to all the companies and groups of companies that are involved or have any connection with any of these oil mining licenses are all involved. So it's not like a one company something, no. There is substance in what we have said, which obviously they will find out once there is an investigation. Immediately he should be removed from the seat so that somebody else can come in and do the job. We have a lot of gallant, sincere officers in the Nigerian military who can do these things. Remove the man from there. It's not his birthright. Somebody left the office for him to occupy, and he's also going to leave it for someone else to occupy, but he mustn't stay a day longer. He shouldn't be allowed to stay a day longer. That is basically what we are saying. So, and then we also said the President should also direct that the Chief of Army Staff conduct an air flyover over the place and see, based on the coordinates, GPS coordinates we have also forwarded, and see the spots where these things are happening. And then they will report back to Nigerians that indeed what is going on there is massive looting and stealing of our national resource.
Stealing of oil, vandalism of oil pipelines, and grand corruption have now reached unprecedented levels, and the economy is losing hundreds of billions of naira to the activities of these criminal elements. Urgent action is needed, and it is needed now. We cannot afford to remain passive as our sovereign wealth is lost due to indifference on the part of relevant stakeholders. All hands must be on deck to forestall the repeated thefts of oil across the NCTL and its attendant implications. This message is jointly brought to you by Niger Delta Environmental Protection Group and the Coalition of Niger Delta Civil Society Activists.